Welcome to Let's Check In with Vuyani. I am glad that you are joining us today for our first episode. This is going to be a long journey that we travel together. So I think it is proper that for us, as we start with myself introducing myself as the host. But I've got my wife, Liberty, who has been with me throughout this short journey. And she will be helping us through the questions that are delving into the character that will be hosting you on this podcast. So, are you excited, ma'am? Are you ready?
I'm excited. I've been waiting for this episode to happen for the longest time.
Same here, same here. Well, without any waste of time, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yes, so I'll be asking Vuyani some few questions about himself and the podcast. So my first question for today is, how are you checking in?
Yeah, look, I'm checking in very excited today. It's been a long day, but I'm happy that finally we are sitting here to start. So, nothing much, just a relaxed day. Um, Day that I'm looking forward to, sitting with you and sharing some stories about myself, some insight, and some reasons why we are doing this podcast.
Okay. And how
Yes.
has it been preparing for this podcast?
Yeah, so we came up with the idea over a month ago, and I think we've been hard at work, trying to get into this thing. Obviously, when we started, we knew very little about, shooting something like this. And to be quite honest with you, we make it look very simple, or people that do
Yeah.
podcasts, they make them look very simple, but there's actually a lot of work that goes behind, the scenes. A lot of things that we've gathered so far is things that I didn't know when we started. I mean, I had no idea that equipment was not cheap. We had to work on the studio, so there's a lot of things that I had not thought about. I knew what I wanted to do, but I did not really think, what is gonna take, what inputs do we need for that. So I think it's been a long journey over a very short period of time, but I think we've done well for ourselves.
Yeah, I also think so because the preparation that goes behind setting up a podcast is a lot, and I'm
Yes.
so glad that we are here today, and we finally we finally arrived at stage one.
Exactly, we get to.
Yeah.
But the thing about this, I think what I also realize is it's the same as starting a business. We probably not gonna be perfect at the beginning, but what is important is that we become prolific. We just keep doing this thing, put out information, content out there for viewers to can see, and then we can improve it over time. We can tweak it here and there to get it better. But I think we are really determined to give out the best content, that we think we can produce, and we hope that it's something that people are going to learn, enjoy, and be hooked onto.
I hope so too. So
Yes.
let's dive into some interesting questions. The next question is, tell us about your background. Where are you from? Where were you born? How was your upbringing? Where did you attend school?
Yeah. So I was born in 1985 at Sebokeng Hospital on the 28th of September. I was born into a family of seven siblings, five brothers and two sisters. One sister is late. And my mother was a domestic worker. She is still alive. And my father was a truck driver. He is late now. So I grew up in Vanderbilt Park in a small farm holding. And as far as I can remember, life was good. Growing up as a child was nice. You spend most of your day in the streets. You leave early in the morning. As soon as you wake up, you're out. You come back when it's really dark. And sometimes you get a hiding for that. But overall, I mean, it was a very good upbringing. I mean, we learned a lot. We enjoyed, that space. It was an environment with a lot of challenges. I mean, access to certain things was difficult. To get transport in a place like that was difficult. You'd walk long distances. I grew up in a house with no electricity until I was 17 years old. So, but it's a good upbringing. I attended school in the same neighborhood. The name of the school was called Ramlele, and I attended this school for 14 years. So yeah, every time I say this, I know why you laugh. But every time I say this, I know that people get curious to say, how is it that I spent 14 years in one school? And there's two reasons for that. The first one is I started school in 91 and I was 5 years old, turning 6 in September. And I failed my grade one, then it was SSR. And then I passed, went on to grade two, and then I failed my grade two again. So that's basically what had happened. And I remember, I come from a family where my all of my siblings went to the same school, and my siblings performed very well at school. The brother that I started school with, when I was failing, he was coming out first or second or third position in class, and I was this one who's just young and naughty. I didn't understand school. So that's what had happened. In fact, when we constructed this studio, I found my grade two report, where I failed, and we were 63 in class, and I came out 56, I think.
By the way, he loves that report.
I love that report. That's my
That's-
that's my most sentimental item that I keep from back then. I intend to keep this report, and I just wanna make it an item that I keep for the rest of my life for as long as I can, because I think it's important. When I look at it today, I realized that that moment was actually an introduction into something very important, the concept of failing. That's when I got introduced to that. You fail, you go back home, you give your parents the report, and then you get to experience the disappointment, you get to experience the shame, you get to experience all of those unpleasant, feelings that we go through as a result of failing. And I think that introduction for me, it was important because today I look at myself and the field that I'm in, where when you do business, you're bound to fail. In fact, in life, we will never go through life without failing. And essentially for me, that was an important introduction into things or concepts that are really teaching me skills and ways to handle situations such as failure, so that tomorrow I can be able to still progress with that, with failure having happened. So I attended the school. So that's the first reason why I attended this school for 14 years. I failed the first and second grade. The second reason for this is because when I started at this school, it was a primary school. And then somewhere during my primary years, it became a combined school. So they added a grade 9 and a grade 8. And then towards my completion of the intermediary learning, they then added another, they actually converted the school into a secondary. So I just kept continuing in the same school until I finished my grade 12. So in a nutshell, that's basically my upbringing, and my schooling. I finished my grade 12 in 2004, by the way.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Yes, so I wanted to ask, what did you do after matric?
Yeah, so after matric, I went to UCT to study chemical engineering. I
So
was
a
success.
person who failed grade one and two managed to enter UCT.
Yeah, well, I
Something
guess.
must have happened throughout your high school years because
Yeah. Look, for me, how I look at it, I don't think it's something exceptional, to be quite honest. I think a lot of people fail in life, but they still are able to achieve great things. I think failing, it is not an indication of lack of capability, but it is rather something that we go through in life that we just need to accept. And when you fail, it does not mean that you're not going to succeed in life or you're not going to make it. Even if your dream is to go to Harvard or Oxford University or whichever prestigious institution that you'd want to attend. So that's how I look at it. But yeah, I got accepted at UCT to study chemical engineering, and I was accepted in a 5-year program. It was called the Aspect program. I'm not sure if it still exists, and if it's still called the Aspect program. So in 2005, I went to Cape Town to do my first year, and then 2006, part of my first year and second year. And then 2007, when I was doing my second year, I think most of my subjects were second year, I then got excluded at the end of 2007. And this was an academic exclusion, So after getting excluded, I then decided that I'm going to convert my BSc into a diploma. And then I went to CPUT. And by the way, this is not something that was uncommon. It was very common. I mean, a lot of people that were failing, especially chemical engineering, we would go to CPUT, convert our BSc into a diploma, and then some the following year would go back to UCT, re-register, and continue with their degree. So with me, I also followed that same route. I went to do my diploma, converted my BSc into a diploma by going to CPUT. So what is interesting is while I was at CPUT during the week, over the weekend, I would still go back to UCT because I was active at the Student Christian Fellowship. So, and I remember then, every time I met the people that I was with at class, they would ask me, I mean, we don't see you during the week. Where are you? What's going on? And I would tell them that, no, man, I got excluded. So now I'm at CPUT. And I remember a lot of them would ask me the same question, are you coming back next year? Are you coming to re-register so that you can complete your BSc? And I remember flatly refusing and saying, you know what, no, I'm not coming back. I just want to finish my diploma. Then I'm going to do my BTech, and then I'm going to continue with life. I felt that going back to UCT was going to waste my time. And I was, one thing that is interesting is, although I had gotten excluded from UCT, for some reason, I still had my dreams intact. I still had my aspirations. I still saw myself succeed in one way or the other. I saw myself make it. And I think that because I did not lose that, I never held on to the institution, which is UCT. And I now realize that that helped me because a lot of my friends who held on to UCT, I find that, they battled, they either they wasted time, a lot of time, or, some of them never recovered to, I mean, they never just recovered. They felt that that failure, was a catastrophic one, and they battled to move forward. But I think for me, I did not battle that much, to be quite honest with you. It was an easy way of progress. I progressed quite well through that. So after I finished my diploma, I then I went back to the Val because Mfuleni was paying for my studies both at UCT and CPUT. So when I finished my S4, I had to go back and do my in-service training with Mfuleni. And they placed me at Metsialekwa, which is an establishment of Mfuleni, and I was working at their sewage plant. So that's what essentially happened. That's how my education, that's how I progressed after Vasi, after metric. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add touch on what you said about failure and accepting that a certain university does not hold your future.
Exactly.
You can still do so much great things in life.
Yes, and not just a university. I think what you're touching
Yeah.
on is something very important. Even institutions, you find people working in one organization for so long with no prospects of a promotion, no prospects of a growth, and people are holding on to a position that is not benefiting them. I think we need to really change that mindset. The the potential of success, it's something that lies with you. It does not lie with an institution, it does not lie with an individual, because as people we are biased. I might not see you as someone who's going to make it, beyond a certain point in life. In fact, we put ceilings for each other. I expect that you're only going to reach 1, 2, 3. I'm not expecting you to go 4, 5, 6. And because of that, we really need to make sure
Break
that
away from that.
the idea of a success, it's something that you decide for yourself, and you never allow another person or an institution to decide for you how far you can go in life.
That's true.
Yes.
My next question is, what did you pursue after your studies?
So what had happened is, towards the end of the in-service training, one day I was walking in my neighborhood, and as I was walking there, I was passing at a place where they are hosting events, and there was this event. I could see people having standing at the price stands, wearing PPE. As I came close, I could see the banners, and the name of the company was BHP Billiton. And I remember looking at this environment, something that really looked beautiful. Children were playing around. And it turns out it was a family event, that was being hosted by BHP Billiton. And as I was passing there, I remember I said to myself, I love what I'm seeing here, and I'm going to work for this company. So I went back home. I then went to the internet cafe, and I searched BHP Billiton. Prior to that, I had never heard of a company called BHP Billiton. So I searched them up, saw that they are putting up their posts on their website, and I started applying for whatever jobs that they were having that were advertising on their website. So, and what then happened is, in June the following year, which was now 2010, 6 months later, after I'd seen them, I got invited to an interview. And I remember at the end of that interview, when I was asked the question, "What do you have any questions for us?" The only question I had for them was, "When do I start?" I said, "When do I start?" And they said, "No, look, we'll tell you." So I left the interview, but before I could get home, I got called. I got that call to say, "Look, you got the job. We want you to come back the following day to sign the contract and then start with your induction and medicals, etc., etc." So I got employed by BHP Billiton at their sewage plant, because already I had gained that experience from Metialekwa. So I worked for BHP Billiton, and in 2012 I enrolled for my BTech degree with the Val University of Technology, and I completed within that year. And then I worked with BHP Billiton until 2015. And what happened, I think, yeah, 2015, BHP Billiton decided to delist from the JSE, and they formed a new company called South 32. So we were then all transferred from BHP Billiton to South 32, because BHP Billiton was leaving South Africa. So I worked for South 32. In fact, during that transition, I moved to Furnaces, where I became a process improvement and analysis and improvement specialist. Process.
You can't
I can't remember. It has been a while
That's how
back.
long it's been.
Process analysis and process improvement specialist. I became a process improvement specialist, something like
Is
that.
it like you just became an engineer?
Yeah,
That's the,
something.
the simple term, guys.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Yes. So I worked at their furnaces for the next 5 years, until 2020, when COVID hit. Then the company decided to put the site on under care and maintenance, and that's the last job I held.
That was the only job you had.
Yeah, that's the only company. Well, I
Yeah,
worked
it
for
was.
two companies, but I think it's the same
It's the
owners.
same. Yeah, it's the same owners. Okay,
Um,
that's very interesting. So what then? What happened? Why? When did you know that you wanted to go into entrepreneurship? And how was your journey leading to you starting this journey of being an entrepreneur? Because obviously you had a good company, you worked for, you're an engineer. Why entrepreneurship?
Yeah, look, I think, funny enough, I've always done something that has to do with either selling or something from a young age. I mean, in primary, I remember I used to sell peanuts for my brothers. My older brothers. They would make peanuts, give them to me. I would go sell them for them at school, sell the peanuts for them at school. And in secondary, I bought a camera and I became a photographer. But even then, I can't say I knew that I wanted to be a business person or an entrepreneur. It was just something that I did maybe for survival or to make some money, out of that. I always thought I'm going to work. But the earliest moment when I thought I actually want to go into business, or the earliest memory that I have where I had this discussion with someone, it's when I was working at Metsialekwa. I remember we were at the lab and I was saying to this colleague that, you know what, I think what I want to do in life is to go into business. I want to become an entrepreneur. And I remember this guy saying, dude, I don't think you're cut for for this thing. I don't think when I look at you, you don't strike me as a person who would survive entrepreneurship. I don't know what he had saw, in me. And I did justify it, whichever way that I justified it. But that is the earliest memory that I have of myself thinking about going into business. So, and then what had happened also is when I got employed at BHP Billiton, what I then learned is apparently in the early 2000s, there was a Section 189 that was initiated by BHP Billiton. And BHP Billiton, during that process, they then decided to outsource some of their assets. So I remember there's a training school, and then there was a fabrication workshop, a huge one. And there's a guy also was doing a guidance service. So BHP Billiton outsourced these assets or operations to some of its former employees. And so when I learned about these stories, I was really fascinated. And to be quite honest with you, at that time, I never saw myself becoming a superintendent, a manager, or a GM of this company. I saw myself becoming a contractor. I just wanted to become, a contractor. And so then I guess the dream and the idea of becoming an entrepreneurship kept growing within myself until in 2015. So when BHP Billiton left South Africa or delisted from the JSE, I then convinced a colleague of mine, because we were still at the sewage plant. I convinced him that we should write a letter to the general manager, request him to retrench us, and then outsource the sewage plant to us to run. I wanted to recreate the same idea that I'd learned about, that had happened to these other guys that were running these operations and assets. And we wrote the letter, submitted it to our then GM, who was Gav Lafleur. And he called us in, looked at our proposal, asked us a couple of questions. But I think our value proposition was not good enough for him. So he decided, no, guys, I'm not going to retrench you. Instead, I'm sending you to furnaces. And that's essentially how I became, a process specialist at the furnaces. Um, and by then I was still pushing for this thing. I wanted to go into business. And after that was declined, then what I then decided to do is to try going into broiler farming. I wrote a business plan, for a period of about 3 months. And 3 months into that business plan, I learned about the AGOA agreement, which is a trade agreement between South Africa, not South Africa, but South Sub-Saharan Africa and the US. So one of the concerns about that trade agreement was that unwanted chicken portions that were coming from the US, or the chicken portions that the US consumers don't really enjoy, were going to be dumped in South Africa as part of that deal. So when I studied about that and learned about it, I decided I'm not going to go into this business. By then, I had obviously registered a business for that, but that just discouraged me, and I never pursued it further. So it was not until 2017 when we had that couch story, you know.
Yeah.
So what happened in 2017, we had a recliner at home, and a recliner I bought in 2012. And I remember when I bought this recliner, the guy said, "This is 80% leather." I actually asked him before I bought it to say, "Is this a genuine leather?" He said, "No, no, 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 it's not genuine leather, but it's 80% leather." So I thought to myself, 80% is good
It's
enough.
good enough.
Yes. So I bought the couch. And then what happened in 2017, the couch started peeling off. It was bonded leather. So the couch started peeling off, and it was not looking good anymore. But the structure was still good. The recliner was still in good shape. The foam, the ball fiber. And we then decided with you, sorry, now we're
Yeah.
telling the story to the viewers. So we decided that we are going to reupholster the couch. Went into the CBD in Vanderbilt to look for an upholstery shop. And after driving around for a while, we could not find one. And I remember going into one of the Indian shops who was selling furniture. And this guy said, "Look, there is not an upholstery shop in the CBD. You're not going to find one. If you want an upholstery, you need to go in the nearest location, which is Tirela." And went to Tirela to look for this upholstery guy. We found a small shack with a lot of couches
With co-
crammed in there. The roof was leaking. Some couches were sitting outside. They were wet. The smell and
was
everything.
smelling.
Yes. So I remember thinking, no, I'm not bringing my couch here. But from that,
No, we asked him the price and it
yes,
was too cheap. I was like, no, this can't be leather. Where
yes,
does he get his leather from?
yeah,
Because there's no way
yes.
for that price.
So I think from that, then the idea to go into, we saw this as an opportunity and decided to go into upholstery. So we looked for space in Vanderbilt and then started the upholstery business. And the interesting thing is, by then, I mean, at work, I was forever talking about going into business. My friends, I would tell them, "Guys, I want to do business. I want to go into business." And what happened, we started this business in March 2017. And that same month, towards the end of that same month, a colleague came to me, Lindani, and said, "Look, Vuyani, we've just secured a contract to build RDPs, or to become to subcontract in a project where the company is building RDP houses. The problem is myself and my two partners do not have enough money to finance this project." So he was looking for 50,000 rands. My question to him was, "If I got you 50K, what do I get, in return?" And then he said, "No, look, if you give me 50K, I will get you into this project and pay you back your 50K." So,
My husband is a risk taker, guys.
so I thought, yeah, I thought that was a good opportunity. So we went we went to the bank, got 50K, because we didn't have 50,000. We loaned it and then gave it to him. And then 3 months down the line, he got us into the same project where now we were coming in with our own company. Went to the bank again, loaned another 50,000 rands for ourselves. And that's essentially how I got into business. In fact, in that deal, we lost
We
quite a lot
lost,
of money
yes,
because we got changed.
70% of the money we lost in
Yeah,
that
we,
deal.
we, we never made our money out of that project, but we learned a lot of things. I mean, it was part of failing, back to the concept of me failing in those early years.
They call it school fees.
And now you're paying this school
School
fee,
fees,
you're
yeah.
learning. But it wasn't a deterrent. We kept
Yeah.
going, although we had lost a lot of money, although we had, burned so many bridges, um, damaged so many relationships through how we were working with people also. But I think we just kept on, doing business. But essentially, that's how I started. That's how the idea of me going into business started, and how we actually got to start and do business.
Okay. So is that the only business that you've done?
No, 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 no. So the upholstery business we ran until from 2017 until 2023 June, and then
Yes.
the construction business, it was called Nash Construction
Construction works.
Works.
Yes.
That business we ran until
No, it was from 2017 to
2019.
2019.
2019.
That's when we worked for government tenders.
Yes.
Yes.
So we those that one we left it, I think, around
Yeah.
2019. And then in 2020, when South 32 decided to put the site where we were working at under care and maintenance, then we bought a another business, Nash Engineering Solutions, and that is the business that we are still running currently. It's a maintenance business, and we are servicing the private sector.
Yes. Okay. Uh, the other question I wanted to ask is why the podcast and what can viewers expect to see and hear from the podcast? Because I feel like it's something different we've from our other businesses. It's a new industry and new field that we have to learn from scratch how it's done. So
Yes.
why did you go into podcasting?
You're right. I think part of this is because I think I'm not afraid to take risks. It's
True.
not a space that I would have thought of myself going into. In fact, I think there is an open letter that I've written about this. So I would encourage anyone who wants more details to watch that open letter. But essentially, what we are trying to do through this podcast, one of the things that I find is that I always felt like lacked is that community of entrepreneurs, who share similar values and ways of doing business. So what we want to do with this podcast is the first thing, or there's three things that we want to do. The first one, we want to inspire people to go into business. What I find in South Africa is there is a shortage of people going into business, and we need to encourage people to go into business. There's a recent report by GEM, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, and what they are saying is, if you look at they look at the people that are interested in going into business in the next 3 months to 3.5 years. And that number has dropped from 20 during COVID to 10%. And this is a report that was released last month. And also, when they look at businesses that are active, between 3 months to 3.5 years, that also has dropped from 17.5% during COVID to about 8.5%. So you can see essentially there is not a lot of people going into business. So we need to get people to go into business. We really need to encourage people to take on the entrepreneurship route. Also, if you look at our unemployment in South Africa, we have 32% of unemployment, and SMMEs can play a critical role in addressing that gap.
It's true.
60% of employment in this country is by SMMEs already. So they are contributing a lot in reducing that number. So if we get more people to do business, I think we can work on that number even much better. The second mandate of this podcast is to create an environment where we can trade, scaling ideas, tools, learn what is the next person doing to scale up their business. Because SMMEs, one of our battles is scaling. We are battling with scaling. We start businesses, we run them, but we don't know how to scale them. Again, if you look at statistics, I mean, in South Africa, only 2% of SMMEs are employing more than 10 people. The other 95% is sole proprietors that are employing zero employees. So we need to come together and teach each other how to scale our businesses, how to grow our businesses, how to create sustainable businesses. So that's one of the things that I hope we can do and successfully do through this podcast. And then the last thing that I would like for us to do through this podcast is to focus on leadership. Look at those key behaviors that make someone a good leader. Develop ourselves as leaders. So that we can run these organizations better. Because we can talk about businesses that we need to run and succeed in them. But if we don't develop ourselves as leaders of these businesses, either founders or owners of businesses, if we don't develop ourselves as leaders, then we're going to battle to run these businesses successfully. We're going to battle to scale them. We're going to battle to maintain, those high levels after we've scaled. So those are the three things that I hope to achieve through this podcast.
Okay, so when will the episodes be aired?
So we are launching. This is the first episode, the intro
Yes.
episode, but we will be airing our episodes every Thursday at 6 o'clock in the evening. We will air an episode, and yeah, so weekly we will air an episode.
Okay.
And what I also want to say is, I think our viewers must go onto our website. One of the things that I
Yes.
really want to make sure that is useful for SMMEs is our website. I want us to create a website that is very much useful, that has got practical tools that
Mm.
SMMEs can use. I mean, I want you to go to our resource tab, because we will add, organizations that do funding. We will add, incubations. We will add, reports that are out on SMMEs. We will add just about anything that has to do with development. But we really want to make this page something that is that has practical tools that SMMEs can use to grow themselves. And I also hope that it becomes an interactive platform where we
Yes,
can
that's what I wanted
get
to
other
say.
people to share their ideas,
Mm.
give us feedback, say, we think this is what you must look at, we think this is what you must improve on.
Mm.
And I'm one person who's very big on feedback. I love feedbacks. I'm not allergic to
You're
feedback,
not like
so
me.
I'm not allergic to feedback.
It's-
So I hope that we can have our platforms can be very interactive. I love to be challenged. I'm open to
and to be
that.
engaging. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I think people must go check out our website. It's a very insightful website. It's got a lot of material information that will help and assist you as a business or anyone who wants to go into business. The
yes,
things that we learned that took us 6 years, for it can I can we can help you that it takes you shorter. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So
in
that's the
short.
thing. And by the way, we're trying to make this thing as practical as possible. So one of the things that we will be doing is we are going to, as part of launching this podcast, we are going to introduce or to host a business partnership competition where the winner gets to win 50% stake on a new business
Yes.
that we're going to form. So I think the viewers need to look
Be
out
on
for
the
that.
lookout for the
Yes.
competition. It's a very nice competition, and it will be very helpful to someone who does get that opportunity, to start a business.
Yes, most
Yeah.
definitely. Most definitely.
So
Yeah,
is that all
that's
for
that's all for
today?
me for today. And I hope the
Okay.
viewers enjoy it.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to impact the space. We want to come into the space very strong. And we are serious about this. We mean business.
Yeah,
No
we
jokes.
we can't wait to host very interesting SMME owners. We also
Exactly.
have so much to learn from them.
Yes. You know, one of the things that I've noticed is there's a lot of people that are doing exceptionally well,
Yeah.
but these people are sitting quietly,
Quickly.
at a corner somewhere. And we really need to bring these people to the front so that they can share, some of their insight, some of their strategies, some of the systems that they're using to excel in what they're doing. So I hope that they would take us up on this offer, because I know, like me, they a lot of people don't want
Yeah.
to be in the public eye.
Yeah, just like you.
Yeah,
So I'm still shocked that you decided to do a podcast, but
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting.
definitely.
I enjoyed this episode. It was very insightful for me, and I'm sure it was insightful for everyone who listened and watched. Uh, we can't wait to see you on the next episode.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and we hope to
you.
see the viewers soon.
Yes. Please like, follow, and subscribe to all our social media pages, including our website page.
Let's check in
With
with Vuyani.
Vuyani.
Thank you.
Thanks.